Joining us now to talk more about the election of Pope Leo is William Kavanaugh. He's a professor of Catholic Studies at DePaul University.
Welcome, Professor. So glad you're here. Your Catholic Studies concentration has been the church in the Southern Hemisphere, Africa, Asia, and South America, where Pope Leo has spent decades, his pastorship. What do you think he will bring to his papacy from his experience gained there?
Well, he has spent a lot of time not only in Latin America, but in a kind of remote part of Peru. And I think what he brings from that is a closeness to people that are poor and marginalized. And he also has a reputation of having a very collaborative style, which is typical of a lot of the Latin American church as well. He brought people from his diocese into the decision-making process, and I think that's a good sign of how he's going to be Pope.
Professor, the last Pope Leo the 13th was called Leo the Great. Why do you think he decided to take the name Pope Leo?
Pope Leo the 13th had the first of what is considered the social encyclicals. So he wrote an encyclical letter in 1891 directly addressing economic issues of the day, and especially the treatment of workers at a time when industrialization was making life very hard for the workers, and they were kind of stuck between capitalism on the one hand and communism on the other. And he tried to forge a new path, a third way. And so it might be that the reason that the new Pope has taken that name Leo is that papal social encyclicals and Catholic social teaching more generally are a priority for him.
His ascension has been meteoric, nothing less than that. He was only appointed a cardinal a couple years ago, but he was very close to Pope Francis. How much did that influence in the vote in the election of him?
Well, I think that indicates that the cardinals are interested in continuing what Pope Francis has started. And there was a lot of talk before the conclave whether the cardinals were going to go for a correction of course. And it looks like they went for full speed ahead with Pope Francis. Of course, the new Pope is a different kind of person. He is, in some ways, a quieter, calmer figure than Pope Francis. He can bridge the gap between Sox fans and Cubs fans, for example. So you might expect that in the church as well, and that might be another reason why he was named. So continuity with Pope Francis, but also a kind of different style.
Professor, in the past, as stating the obvious, there's never been an American Pope. A lot of the reason because America has all the power as it is now, and that could be, they didn't need any more influence, let's put it that way. So why do you think they decided to go with an American this time around, I should say?
Well, I was surprised too. And he is an American, but he's not that American. He's not too much American, right? He was born and raised in Chicago, but he has spent most of his adult life in South America and also in Rome. And so he kind of represents the Catholic nature, the universal nature of the church being on the three continents. But there's also another intriguing possibility, which is that the cardinals might have wanted to send a message to the way American power is exercised in the world today. Back in February, the then Cardinal Prevost tweeted that J.D. Vance is wrong about immigration, that Jesus does not ask us to rank our loves. And so it's possible that part of what the cardinals were doing in choosing an American pope was making a statement towards the way that the Trump administration has wielded American power.
Very interesting on so many levels. How about this? Do you think he will be coming to Chicago anytime soon?
Oh, I certainly hope so. Let's invite him.
I think so. Something we can all agree on, he's definitely a Bears fan.
But before you go, a quick question. Would Pope Francis have approved?
Oh, I think definitely. I mean, he, in many ways, the new Pope owes his ecclesiastical rise, such a meteoric ecclesiastical rise, entirely to Pope Francis. He made him a bishop for the first time in 2014. He brought him to Rome and put him in charge of the dicastery of bishops just a couple of years ago. And he obviously saw something in him. And so I think Pope Francis is smiling down from heaven right now.
So nice to hear. William Cavanaugh, professor of Catholic Studies at DePaul University. We appreciate your thoughts. We appreciate your time. You take care.
My pleasure.